Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined as she travels the Vortex and arrives at episode 527. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good. Been a few weeks since we got back together. There's probably tons of stuff to talk about, right? Did you guys do anything fun in the interim?
So much fun.
So much fun.
So much fun.
So much.
What
So
all
I did.
fun did you do?
I did so much that I can't even remember what I did.
Yeah, same here.
I finished the Orville.
Oh.
It was phenomenal. No spoilers, but it does end on a extremely high note, which the whole season has been great, but I feel in general it goes out on a high note. And should this be the last season, and it doesn't get a renewal, I think it's a very fitting ending for things. But there's still enough, kind of balls in the air, as it were, that they very easily could come back. And now that it's on Disney Plus, I understand that it's actually number 4 in the Disney Plus rankings of popularity this week. So Disney better be paying attention, because there's a lot of interest in. We want a 4th season, guys. So, but that's I can't recommend it enough. Good show. Good series.
Cool.
We finished Stranger Things, finally. And also pretty amazing. Also very happy. Kind of an exhausting series by the time we got to the end of it, with all of the movie length stuff that was going on there. But still worthwhile. We went and saw Nope.
Was that any good?
It was. I think it's probably Jordan Peele's best film.
Huh. Doesn't seem to be getting as much, at least box office revenue, as his previous ones. Haven't looked at the reviews.
Yeah, I think it's suffering a little bit from just, I don't know. We're in that weird. I predicted this a couple of years ago, that with the pandemic we were going to hit a spell where there just wasn't really anything new coming out. Because, while we kind of released everything to streaming, and then we were going to hit that where there wasn't a bunch of stuff being made, because they kept jockeying for positions while they were doing stuff. And I think that's part of it. And I also think it's just Top Gun came out and people saw it and was kind of like, okay, I'm done. They had their summer blockbuster, and they're not yet used to going back to the theaters for another go around. And it's not Marvel. So, but it is if you can, go into it as blind as possible. Don't study a trailer. Don't just go, because I think the surprises in it are what really makes it work. But we had a lot of fun. One of those great scary movies that's not too scary, and reminiscent of a couple other films, but it's got some good twists and turns, and does a really great job of playing up what you think is going on until it hits you with it's this, but it's not this. So really well done.
Keith, what about you?
I finished the 3rd book in the Red Rising saga. It was a really good end to what I think was supposed to be just a trilogy, and he decided to then continue on, and has done a 2nd trilogy, and will, I think, do a 3rd trilogy. But the end of this one was phenomenal. It was, the first book, Red Rising, was very, very good. This book was equally as good, which is pretty good for being the 3rd book in the series. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend it. And it sounds like it might be finding its way to television at some point, so I'm sure it'll be all over the feeds once it actually comes out.
Yeah. Well, very cool.
What about you, Glenn?
I was serious. I don't remember anything I did. Nothing Didn't watch
We watched
anything.
the I
Haven't read
Am
anything.
Groot shorts.
Oh yeah, I did watch those too. Those were cute.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Seyfried.
you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
All right, well, let's move on to the news. We've got some pretty sad news to report this time. Just on the heels of our last recording, we found out that actor Bernard Cribbins died. Passed away at 93, I think it was.
What a good long life.
Yeah. We'll, of course, get to see him again in the Doctor Who 60th anniversary. There were some set pictures of them recording with him, or shooting with him on the show. So it looks like Wilfred will return, but he will be missed. I can't say that I knew him from much other than Doctor Who, and then of course the Doctor Who movie, the Dalek Invasion Earth. But and then I think he did some of the audios, didn't he? He did the that glam rock one. I can't remember what it was called. That Eighth Doctor one. We found
Horror of Glam Rock.
Yeah, that was it. Horror of Glam Rock, which was pretty cool revelation to find out that he was doing a voice in that one. So he'll be missed. I really, I these guys pass, and I think, oh, I'm really gonna miss these guys. It's sad, but then I think, well, I look over at my shelf and I think, well, I've got a lot of stuff that I can remember him by going back and pulling something off the shelf and watching specifically from Doctor Who. So
Plus, Bernard has that back catalog of stuff we haven't seen. That's, across the pond that could easily, now that things are so much easier to find these days, catch up and find out what we missed.
Right. In fact, I think he's done a couple of the Carry On films as well, which are ones that I'm looking forward to doing sometime.
He will definitely be missed.
Well, let's move on to some happier news. We are finally getting some First Doctor on Blu-ray, and not just the Galaxy 4 Blu-ray that released a little while back. They've announced that season 2, which will be season 2 in the UK, but interestingly enough, it's also season 2 for us, will release on Blu-ray, and that includes, let's see, The Crusade is on that one.
Planet of the Giants. Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yep. The Rescue, The Romans, The Web Planet,
Yeah.
The Crusade, which I said, The Space Museum, The Chase, and The Time Meddler. Which is interesting because The Chase, we see the send-off of Ian and Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
And then in The Time Meddler, we are... Oh, wait a minute.
Well, early in the season, we also get the send-off of Susan and the introduction of Vicky.
That's right. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Because I was going, wait a minute. But the Time Meddler is the... I guess it's Stephen's first full... story on the TARDIS, in the TARDIS. So that's what I was thinking of. I knew it introduced somebody. But
handoffs throughout this season.
It does look like they are going to use they're going to reconstruct the 2 missing episodes of The Crusade using off-air photographs, which isn't new. They've done that before. They did that with officially the BBC did it with, or I should say, I guess it was To Entertain, did it with The Underwater Menace. So we've seen it done before. They've done a little bit of that reconstruction, I think, with the, didn't they do that with Galaxy 4 initially? They did reconstructions with telesnaps. So it's not unheard of. And this box set, even though I kind of was joking with you guys that I had predicted a year ago that would likely be what they would do with the Crusade, and that's likely what they would do with Marco Polo from the first season, because they've already got a truncated version of Marco Polo on the Edge of Destruction. Is that what the one? Yeah, Edge of Destruction DVD. I guess it's Edge of Destruction and the Daleks. And so
It's the beginning box set over here. But
I suspect that will be what they'll do with that one, and that'll allow them to release Hartnell's first season as well. So that one, I'm hoping that they include the, I think it was, I don't remember. You guys watched that. I still have not watched that, but I know that there's also in the 90s, I think they had Ian Chesterton. What's the actor's name? It's escaping me now.
Oh, William Russell.
Yeah, William Russell. They had him do a sort of linking narrative thing, sort of like Tom did for Shawna on the VHS. And so I would like to see them include something like that on there, even though that was shot, many years ago. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be.
But back to this one, I'm really excited that we're finally getting some First Doctor, and of all of the missing episodes to do a reconstruction and not do animated with, it would be the Crusade would be one of my picks if I had to pick one to do, or pick some to do it this way. The Crusade would be one of those, because I think the Crusade, even when we watched the Loose Cannons reconstruction of it, I think the story came off really well. It also helped that we had read the novelization along with watching the story, but I think it works, because I don't think you need a lot of visuals for that one. So, and like I said, it gives us a chance to get the Blu-ray out there and get some of this stuff on Blu-ray that we've been missing from the earlier Doctors.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have not been overly excited about most of the Blu-ray sets, because it's like, there's a handful of stories that are like, okay, maybe, but there's enough on this that I don't actually own on DVD that makes me go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll pick that up.
I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say it's a ploy. I am going to say that I agree that of all the ones to reconstruct, the Crusade is one that makes sense to do. And I am also going to say that from a tactical move, this is the most complete season that's available to the BBC to release, so it makes the most sense to do it. I think they are moving forward with this season as a show of strength, that they are bargaining with any of those private collectors that still have episodes locked away in their closets, as if to say, well, we're releasing it with or without you. And this is their way of showing that, yes, we're doing it. And that we're not going to pay any exorbitant fees for these things. You can either return them and allow the world to enjoy them, or hold on to them for nothing and, keep them closeted away. But these things are coming out. And so this is kind of serving and putting everybody on notice that, yes, it is coming. And I think it's done in hopes of getting a couple of people to maybe cough up some of those ones that they know are still out there that disappeared after they were found again. But that's me. I'm the eternal optimist.
No, it's an actually interesting theory. I don't think that I would necessarily agree. I don't know that I 100% agree, but I don't think I necessarily would disagree with it either. This is one of those series that I don't think the Crusade is one that they think are being squirreled away.
Yeah.
So that does make sense for them to release this one, and it still does show that, hey, we're serious about going ahead and put these out, whether we have everything returned or not. So
because there are still persistent
something.
Swirling rumors that Marco Polo does still exist somewhere out
right.
there.
And I think there's some for season 3, which has probably the most Hartnell missing episodes. I think there's some belief that there's some Mythmakers and some of the Massacre that's still out there somewhere. So,
and that may also play into the the which ones have been animated and why they've stopped the animated releases, up to a point that we went ahead and animated the ones that we knew we were never, ever, ever, ever going to recover, and didn't animate the ones that we kind of held out hope that maybe could still show up. So
I don't know that we can say that, because I think the ones...
it's pure speculation.
Yeah, I don't think we can say that with the animation, because they started on the path of animation before, I think it was, who was the guy that found the last batch of...
Morris.
Yeah. When he... Philip Morris? When he let slip that there were some collectors that had him in their collection. There were some that they implied, I don't think he said, but there was some fans that implied that some of the ones that are in a collection along with Marco Polo were some that had already been animated as well. So I don't know that was probably necessarily the case with the animated films, or the animated episodes. Time will tell, though. I mean, I think you've got a real good point with the Marco Polo, why they chose season 2 instead of season 3. And also, season 2, to be fair, another argument for it is there's only 2 episodes missing out of the entire series.
Yeah.
They've got 2 episodes of The Crusade. If you look at series 1, they don't have all of Reign of Terror, so they're going to have to rely on an animated set for that one. And they don't have any of Marco Polo. Yeah, right. And they don't have any of Marco Polo. So that would be another argument for saying, well, season 2 made the most sense right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the Marco Polo aspect of it, because if they were going to do the Blu-ray, they're going to want to do a complete reconstruction, not the truncated version for that story. And since all of it is missing compared to only 2 of The Crusade, I think that weighed heavily on why they chose this one.
Well,
not into the conspiracy theory.
No, I see. Well, I disagree.
This one's easier to do, so they're going to do it first while they work on the Marco Polo.
I disagree with you. I don't think they're going to reconstruct 7 stories with snapshots. I don't see them doing that. I don't see them putting that much effort into Marco Polo. I see them releasing that one with the abbreviated version for the sheer fact that it's not cost effective for them to reconstruct 7 episodes. It is for The Crusade doing 2, but I just don't see them I could be wrong, but I don't see them doing reconstruction. Well, especially since Marco Polo doesn't have telesnaps existing either. So that was one of the ones that doesn't. In fact, whenever you see pictures of Marco Polo, it's always the on-set production photos that were taken. So I would disagree that I don't think they will be reconstructing Marco Polo in any way unless they animate it, which we know they probably won't.
Yeah, Marco Polo's just got so many strikes against it, being a historical, being that there are no telestabs, being that it's 7 parts long. It's just a difficult pill to swallow for BBC to go, what do we do with it in order to rescue it? And I mean, it's great that we have the audio, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's such a, what do you do with the audio? What do you marry that to in order to get it out there? And I kind of feel like the truncated version that's available now, honestly, is probably, I mean, if money were no object, then yes, I would totally love to have it animated. But money is an object. Right. And so I feel like the truncated version is probably the best we can hope for. And then maybe, an audio version that would play, and maybe with a script or something that would allow you to read along with it or something as a bonus feature. But I unless they find it, I don't think we'll ever see Marco Polo in its entirety.
Yeah.
It kills me to say that. It kills me to say that. Oh.
Time will tell. I suppose we'll see.
It's nice that they also got Maureen O'Brien to come back for that video, the trailer.
Oh, it was so sweet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was simple compared to, some of the plot-heavy other ones that have kind of come along, but
It didn't need to be overly complex.
Yeah.
I guess looking at this, there was telesnaps of Marco Polo. But let's see, telesnaps existing. So there's 72. Wait, is that per story? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, okay. So they do have a good number. I may be eating my words now, Keith, because they do have a good number. There's 72 from the first one, 78 from the second one, 75 from the third one. There are none available for the fourth story. Then 70, 69, and 80. The last one has the most. So I could be eating my words. It's there are quite a few. Web Planet doesn't, but we don't need to worry about that one because we have that one animated. The Chase we don't have to worry about because we have that. Oh no, Web Planet exists, not animated.
Web Planet
sorry.
exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, all of those exist.
Yeah, that's in fact that whole season does.
Although that one makes an interesting case for one that maybe should be animated.
Right. It looks like season 3 is the one that has the most existence. And season 3 is going to be tough because there are none that exist.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, like I say, time will tell. We'll see.
You were invited on an adventure across all of time and space. In a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson, Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse. On shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
All right, well, shall we move on to our reviews?
Can you hear me? Planet Earth. Is this getting through? Something is coming. Something is coming for you. My name is the Doctor. You might not remember me, but I remember you. I need you to listen to me. You're in danger. Big, serious, end-of-the-world type danger. And normally, I'd drop right in to help you with that. But something's stopping me from getting through. I don't know much yet. I'm still figuring it out. But you're forgetting me. You're forgetting us, me and my friends, and everyone who's ever helped me. It's like they're disappearing. No, worse than that. They're being erased from existence. Redacted from reality. And if you're listening to this, and you know who I am, then it's coming for you too. So please, listen. I know it's weird. I know it's scary. I know it seems impossible. But sometimes you have to step up and do the weird, scary, impossible thing because someone has to. Remember me. Remember the Doctor.
Doctor Who Redacted, a 10-part audio drama from Juno Dawson. Listen first on BBC Sounds.
Doctor Who Redacted. What if this random police public call box was actually an alien ship? They don't know who the Doctor is or if aliens are real, but soon find themselves caught in a supernatural conspiracy as they learn that everyone who's ever met the Doctor is disappearing and being forgotten. Essentially, they're being redacted from reality. The Blue Box Files is so unsuccessful that our heroes are the last ones to be affected by the redaction, making Cleo, Abby, and Shawna the world's only hope. Now it's a race against time to uncover the truth.
Did I tip my hand? I may have tipped my hand.
Well, no, I mean, I think that you do that every week. So go ahead.
It's
you
not
start.
tipping a hand, it's starting your review.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead and start.
No, somebody else jump on this. I'm curious to. I've already given it to my review. Somebody else chime in and I will nod along.
Well, this is, I will say this is a series that I got a chance to listen to as they were coming out. So I did this on a week to week, and I just kept thinking every week how good the stories were. And the first 3 stories specifically, I thought were so good. And Juno Dawson, who wrote, they actually conceived the series and wrote the first 3 episodes. And I think she comes back and writes the last, I guess she writes a little bit with others in some of the other ones. But anyway, she wrote those first 3. And I thought, when I got to series 4, I thought, please don't let this fall off. Please don't let this fall off. Please let this be as good as it's been. And so when I got to Angels, and that one was, I think, primarily written by Christina Brinkworth, it still held up. It still held up immensely. And in fact, taking us the direction of bringing Unit in was really cool. The Angel. Well, here's what I really like about this series is it is a love letter to new Doctor Who. And by that, I mean, we get a lot of callbacks. We get the Ronnie, or not the Ronnie. Get Ronnie. Sorry. We get Ronnie. We get Unit with Kate Stewart and Osgood. We get dropped names like the Adipose, the Angels, the just all of these different little things that they allude to. What was the other one? There was another big one that it's escaped me now. But anyway, it just these little, I call them fan moments, but they're constructive fan moments, because we're talking about 3 women who do a conspiracy plot podcast, or a mystery podcast called The Blue Box, and their Blue Box Files. And so it totally makes sense that they have caught brief, stories or they've caught wind of these different events that have happened that, we've witnessed in the series. And so I thought that was a really clever way to kind of go, hey, throw Adipose here. Hey, throw this here. Hey, throw that there, and kind of make it still work in the overall arc of the story by framing it that way. So that was really cool. But from beginning to end of this one, every week, there was never one that let down. And it was really frustrating for me because most of these end on a cliffhanger. And so it was very much now I've got to wait an entire week to find out what's going to happen next. So that was kind of thrilling and exciting as well. I very much like, some of those 2-parters back in the new series. And then of course, even more so in the classic series where, you went story to story, or not story to story, episode to episode with a cliffhanger. So that was kind of fun getting that again.
I agree with a lot of what you said, Glenn. And it feels like they thought about, okay, if this was actually a podcast set in the Doctor Who universe, kind of about the Doctor and the mysteries of what's going on, without actually making it full on Linda, which that we had a nice references to also. How would they go about it, and what kind of things would they, sort of events what would coincide with that? So there was a lot of those things. Like even the discussion about the moon the hospital going to the moon. I thought that was really clever and something that not a lot of people would think of instantly of a widespread events as far as the new series goes. So I thought they did a really good job thinking about all of those little subtle nuances while weaving the story together. I do think overall it gets a little bit long in the tooth. Especially later on in the season, I felt like it was kind of we're treading our wheels a little bit too much here. Let's get moving a little bit more with the story. Like the introducing Unit and the interrogations and all of that, and then being in the warehouse was all really cool, and it felt like they were starting to uncover mysteries, and then they have their big fight and then go off their separate ways, and it felt like it was a backpedal too much to get to this new place to end the story. That was my biggest complaint with it, was that section when they go off and what's her face stays with Unit.
Was it Abby or was it Shawna? I couldn't remember. I think it was Abby that stayed, right?
I think it was Abby that stayed. But the fact that Abby's, and not necessarily the fact that Abby stays, but it feels like they were making forward momentum on what's going on, and then they slid backward because of all of that.
I can see what you mean, but I think that also needed, I think that was sort of needed because it added that kind of romantic tension, because I think it's Shawna that doesn't admit that she's had feelings, romantic feelings for Abby. And so that's kind of forced to the front. And so I think that actually works for that, because it does give us that, kind of romantic tension happening there, and that sort of realization. So I think that furthers that kind of aspect of it along, but I can kind of see what you mean by it kind of does feel like we're treading water on everything else that's happening for the sake of that.
Yeah, it feels like they could have done it in a different way while still moving everything forward. And while by the time we got to the end of it, I understood why we had to take the detour clear out to wherever Cleo grew up, and especially since it focused around Cleo a lot. But while it was happening, I was like, "What? Why are we doing this?" It didn't quite seem to click right away with me, anyways. Of why this other side trip of whatever's going on with her mom. Why they're going to try to focus on that instead of continuing the investigation as it was.
That was the only thing that I felt like they were spinning their wheels on, is I felt that Ghosts and Rescue were a little too strung out there. So, Madame Vastra, that was the other thing that was the big surprise in that, when Vastra shows up, when it reveals that, was it Requiem? Is that what she was calling herself? Or,
mm-hmm.
And we find out that it's Madame Vastra. I thought that was neat.
I am disappointed they didn't actually get Nev McIntosh back, though.
Oh, is that not her? I didn't
recognize her as Vastra until they started calling her Vastra.
Oh, is that right? I thought she did a really good Vastra.
I wasn't impressed.
Oh.
It was not Neve, for the record.
I'll be darned. I did not realize that.
McKitchen? I'm probably butchering the name.
I'll be darned. Regardless, it was still exciting for her to show up.
It was. And I had trouble. At first, I was like, how is she even there? And then she had that nice drop line of how long her species lives. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that works.
Well, and
it's a bit of a stretch, but it works.
She makes the comment about her long dead wife too, which I kind of, Jenny, poor Jenny. But she's got a lifespan. They're living in Victoria, England, so yeah, obviously, that's not gonna last. So,
right.
I was struck right from the get-go with how easy it was to fall into this. The setup of making this an X-Files-esque, podcast. Obviously we had shades of Clive and his Have You Seen This Man? Kind of conspiracy theories and stuff, but they're having way more fun with it and not nearly so sinister.
Well, they're almost not taking themselves too seriously.
Yeah, and that I think worked for the nature of it. And our heroines are quite funny, and they have great chemistry together. And I'll say it, they reminded me quite a bit of a certain trio of Doctor Who podcasters in real life. If Traveling the Vortex had started off on a slightly different road, I could have seen us doing something along those lines. So it was easy for me to like these people. And then as the story progressed, and we would get these little hints of things being wiped and the Doctor ostensibly being blamed for it. It was like, what is going on here? And I remember thinking to myself when I really kind of caught wind of what the redacted in Doctor Who Redacted meant, and it was like, oh, okay. And just what a cool concept that was. And then being a little frustrated that this didn't come out during the whole I just lost the name of it. Or he goes back to the dark times, the last big thing we did.
Time Lord Victorious.
Time Lord Victorious. It felt very much like it could have slotted into that very easily. That this could have been a side effect or something as a part of the rippling of that kind of stuff. But I'm just having a blast with it. And then somewhere in the middle, after Kate and Osgood and everybody had shown up, I suddenly realized that this series has done a very phenomenal job of not only being a love letter, as Glenn pointed out, a showcase for a new Who, but a showcase of all of these very strong female characters from Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the guest stars, are women. And very appropriate, for a female-led podcast, that's who they encounter. And kind of just having them show up one after another was just kind of like, yeah, these ladies all kick ass. It was just kind of this nice reminder that Doctor Who has done some really good things with lady characters of late. And so that was very affirming, I felt. And then we got to the ghost story arc. And I kind of agree with Keith. It went a little off the rails, and that it was almost too similar to like the Doomsday plot, where it felt like, okay, sort of these Cybermen that are trying to come through, and how come nobody remembers that? For all of the things that they've wiped from people's memories, nobody remembers the Battle of Canary Wharf. Seriously? Skies full of Daleks and ghost Cybermen coming through on the lawn of the Taj Mahal. But nobody remembers it. Okay. But it just felt very... I almost to the point where I wasn't sure if they were trying to maybe place this during that time frame, even though I knew they physically couldn't do it during that time frame. You know what I mean? And so I was a little lost during it until Cleo makes the connection with the Doctor that, it's a psychic, it's a psychic plane. Oh, I'm so dense. And what a wonderful Doctor moment that Cleo has there. Almost Eighth Doctor, stupid Doctor, that she got it. And it was this kind of fist pump. Oh, yes, and that it's just kind of a prison of your mind, that you're only here because you feel like you need to be here. And that you just, click your heels together 3 times and you get to go home. You just have to wish there's no place like home and you get to come home. And the simplicity of that, I kind of redeemed everything. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. You gave me a happy ending, and we reconciled with Mom, and I enjoyed the ride. I am totally okay with this. I had a lot of fun during this one. So it made me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked, especially early on, how they unveiled all of the, the redacting aspects of things, of people disappearing and no one remembering but Cleo, or all of that stuff. They did a really good job of, we talk about this, there's missing people, and it's going up, and then it's starting to go down because they're forgetting, and that's such a cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated the time spent in the warehouse with, was it Joel? Where they're firing the Sonic.
Yeah.
Cans of soda. Like, what are you doing? Cream soda, or ginger ale works better.
Well, and that was a great part where it was, it felt like a breather.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like it was Well, it was. I mean, you look at it, and for the most part, it's treading water a little bit because they're not really getting much discovered or moving things forward too much. But it's enough of a breather that it doesn't feel like you're not progressing like it does later.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that the follow-up scene to that, where they find, the box of Dad's belongings, it seemed a little too knee-jerk reaction. And admittedly, I'm not in Cleo's shoes. Had I assumed that my dad was missing or had walked out or, whatever, years and years and years and years ago, and then all of a sudden in this shadow government agency, I find a box of his stuff surrounded by other boxes of other people's stuff, and it's apparently part of he's been killed, I probably would have made the same leap. But to automatically conclude that Unit was responsible for killing him, I think was too convenient just for the purposes of breaking up our trio. And so I can kind of see what Keith was going for there, because it felt very J.K. Rowling, like, oh, we're going to break up Harry, Ron, and Hermione because we need to for the story. Even though the three of them together are what make the story work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that we enjoy the most about reading those books. That's kind of how these three ladies worked. They were best, at their best when they were together. And I didn't want to see them broken apart and to automatically make that leap. And then, Osgood didn't even give an explanation as to why. No, you've got it all wrong. It was because of this. She just kind of came across very cold as to say, yeah, well, okay, there's the door. It's like, okay, we're going to go that route with it. You stole her friend and you're just going to, so it was a little bit of a contrivance to get there. But okay, whatever.
I will say that the Doctor does not seem to have a good track record with showing up and saving people's parents in the past. They've failed at this before in the series, and in fact, when they started talking about that reminded me of what is the 10th Doctor episode where that happens, and the main person sees him as a child, and he was there investigating something, and it ends up taking one of their parents. Now I can't remember what story it was, but it really reminds me of that. And I thought, wow, a doctor just isn't really good at saving kids' parents when in the past when something happens. What story was that? I can't remember now.
I don't know.
It's escaping me. It'll come to me.
I can't remember it either.
Time for a rewatch. So I struggled toward the end of this. I was hit with a thought, and I hesitate now to even bring it up, but I kind of want to mention it just because of the epiphany that I had as I worked my way through it. And I'm curious to know if you guys, and maybe it's because I'm a writer that I hit upon it versus not. When I, right on the heels of my thinking, wow, look at all these awesome women that we've had in Doctor Who. This is so cool that this show has done this, this series of podcasts. My next thought was we got to the episode where the cops were being very ineffective at attempting to rescue them from the ghosts, which of course is such a trope. It's like, yes, come and rescue us. Oh, look, you got eaten. That's terrible. Just darn. And it suddenly dawned on me that for all of the strong and capable women characters that showed up throughout this, the male characters in this were all pretty much worthless, kind of across the board. And what I mean by that is they showed up and they were in various stages of, in the case of Joel, they were, either subservient, or the case of the random guy who decides to threaten her at unit, extremely violent, and then proven to be inefficient at it because he's either wiped and transferred, or just wiped, or just transferred, one of those, or the cops that they're just inefficient at their jobs and threatened by the ghosts and then wiped. Really, the only male character that's kind of worth their salt at all is her brother Jordan, and he's removed from the story for a very large chunk of it. And so then that led me to so I'm wondering if this is done on purpose from a stance of female empowerment writing, or is this just because these are all tropes and it wouldn't have mattered had this been a trio of men running through the paces anyway. And once I said that out loud to myself, I realized that it wouldn't have mattered, because if it was guys, they are all tropes. Every single one of these situations is a tropey. You've got the threatening guard, you've got the ineffective cops, you've got this. So it is all tropey writing. So then it doesn't matter that the gender flip happened in the way that it did. And I was just curious. I want to make it clear that I am not in any way, shape, or form, throwing shade at anybody. I was just curious if that was something that you guys noticed at all when you were listening to it.
Not in the slightest. Even now, you saying that and me thinking back, I still don't even get that feeling or impression.
Okay. Good. Then it was just me, and it meant nothing.
Love and Monsters. Elton's mom was killed by the shadow ghost. Yep. That's why he's obsessed with the doctor, because he remembers him from childhood, but doesn't remember it. Doesn't exactly remember it. He just remembers.
So they likely took a page out of that, because Linda also too. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Linda's from that episode. Wow, of all the things to remember Love and Monsters for, Eldon's mom would not be. That's not one of the cornerstones of that episode.
I'm an apologist for that.
Oh, I know, we all are, but I just, you had to dig deep for that one.
From that story.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I didn't remember exactly I couldn't remember who it happened to, but I remember the circumstances. So I'd forgotten it was his mother too, not his father.
This was just such a delightful story.
It really is.
And the other thing is, it was just, I wonder too if my enjoyment of it maybe was the fact that it wasn't Time Lord related. there may have been a small piece of that just because it was different was adding to it, but overall it was just such a nice, just a breath of fresh air, and it was so well done, and just across the board, the writing, the performances, I couldn't have been more pleased with it.
Right. No, I agree. It's strong writing. It's great performances. It's the little fan moments that are thrown in there, and it's they included characters that we're familiar with. They introduced us with two characters, very endearing characters that I grew to love, and yeah, I just overall I praise the series, and I would like to see them go on and do even more. I could even see this as a spinoff TV series as well. I think this could easily work on TV, maybe in even the short format that they do it in.
Or even just bringing these three main characters as cameos to a TV episode would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly more Cleo would be welcome.
Yeah.
Not that they're not all great, but I definitely felt an affinity for Cleo.
Well, she really becomes the main character throughout the entire thing.
Well, she's kind of our substitute doctor.
Yeah, she really is.
Yeah.
Well, she plays the role of substitute doctor and substitute companion at the same time.
Yeah.
She's our eyes into the world, and it gets to be the doctor too.
And it helps that she's the only one that remembers all this stuff.
Well, that's true. And saves the day.
Right, right.
They all say, who is Doctor Who?
Do you collect Doctor Who? Do you have Doctor Who items and you don't know you collect Doctor Who? For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world, tune in to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, a Direction Point Network podcast. I am Larry Van Rosbergen, your host, and I have been collecting Doctor Who for 40 years. With popular features like collection protection and the most outrageous offer, we have a lot of fun. Available anywhere you get your podcasts. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point Network podcast.
All right, well, Sean, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next on the schedule, we dip back into the Time War with Act 2. We start off with a next time short trip, All Hands on Deck, in which Susan Foreman gets her call-up papers, as it were, followed by the box set Susan's War. We get 4 stories of Susan's involvement. And then not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Eighth Doctor box sets. Time War 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that will be bookended by another short trip, Hard on Both Sides. And then I think we have... we finish off with Diary of River Song in there, don't we? A classic Doctor?
I think there is
Classic
one
Doctor,
following that, yeah.
Yeah, Classic Doctor's New Monsters is what it is. No, it's not a Diary of River Song, but it's a River Song story.
Yes, so there. That's
what I'm thinking of.
Yes,
okay,
it is a river story.
There's technically a block of them, but I think we've reviewed some of the others, so
yeah,
it'll kind of be a review for the segment. So that kind of lays out all of Act 2 that is coming up in our year-long look at the Time War.
Right. What you're thinking of is Rulers of the Universe, Diary of the River Song 1.4 actually falls in this time, and we're foregoing that because we've already reviewed that. But we will be picking up the Classic Doctors, New Monsters Series 2-4, which has Day of the Vaster Nerada, which is part of this as well, this set as well, or this era as well, I should say. It's at least loosely connected. We can put it that way.
It's got the 8th Doctor, so...
Yep.
As with all things that we've been listening to at this Time War, it's loosely connected.
Well, for sure. I'm hoping it's a little more connected now that we're drawing back into the Doctor in the story and not so much the War Master, where we feel like we're just kind of coming up with War Master stories because we love Derek Jacobi, and I'm glad that they do, but they certainly don't tie as closely as I'd like. Well, be sure to check out our website, travelingvortex.com. And if you get any value out of this podcast, why not put some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on our Patreon link and supporting us on Patreon. Also, please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you join in the conversations on our listeners forum on Facebook. Anything else we need to touch on before we close this one? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.